What's up, everybody? We got UFC Fight Night Shanghai coming up. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Song Yadong. And I want to talk about this main event because I looked at the odds and I see that Umar is a massive favorite over Song coming into this fight. Now, I'm not going to act like I'm surprised, right? I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is without a doubt one of the best bantamweights in the world, went tooth and nail with Merab Dvalishvili and what I thought was one of the greatest bantamweights of all time in a fight that Umar arguably could have won, right? And he's looked really good in the UFC. He's been very, very dominant for the most part. But we have seen big time in 2026. It's been a reality check. That's what 2026 has been. It's been a reality check that styles really do make fights. And why do I have this very weird feeling that Song Yadong is about to be a very difficult fight for Umar? That's how it feels to me. Maybe I'm tripping, right? Maybe this year has gotten too much in my head or something, right? And of course, if Umar goes out there and dominates Song, outstrikes him, takes him down, controls him, and wins a dominant decision, like I'll never be surprised if Umar Nurmagomedov is able to do something like that. But I'm just saying, I feel like Song has made some really good improvements. Song has been very competitive with some of the best fighters in this division. And I just see stylistically the way he matches up, I feel like he could potentially cause some problems for Umar in this fight, man. So I want to break down this fight, break down the Song Yadong style, the style of Umar, and talk about how I think these guys are going to approach this matchup and some things that I see that could potentially be very troubling for Song in this fight. I mean, Umar, I've been saying for a while, I believe that he is one of, if not the most skilled bantamweight in this division. I think it's him and Petr Yan, right? The two most well-rounded, the most skilled. Like when you're like, what can't they do? It's Petr Yan and Umar Nurmagomedov. And I think that Umar is one of the most dynamic strikers in this weight class and some of the best kicks in the UFC. I mean, when you talk about guys who are a switch hitter, typically you could tell that, well, on one side, they're a little bit better than the other. Umar is like an ambidextrous fighter. He is incredible out of both stances, and his style very much reminds me of his brother Usman. The way that these guys are able to just whip kicks up out of nowhere, their footwork, their movement. Umar is an incredible fighter. I'm just saying, stylistically, I think Song Yadong is starting to build some momentum here. And one of the unsung things around the camp of Song is him working with Rudy Hernandez with the boxing. And if you don't know who Rudy Hernandez is, right, he's a cut man, in the UFC, so I'm sure you've seen him around. He is an outstanding boxing coach. And I feel like we've seen some really good adjustments with Song. And obviously, training all this time at Team Alpha Male, we know they all can wrestle at a very high level. I've seen some of those clips, man, with Song wrestling. And I'm sitting here saying, well, wait a second. If Umar's not able to keep Song down and get those takedowns when he needs to and when he wants to, and this fight's playing out on the feet, we know that Song, even though he doesn't have a ton of KOs against the top flight opposition in this division, he's got very explosive power, nasty boxing. And come on, man, we're in Shanghai. You know Song's going to be on fire, man. He's going to be motivated for this. We saw him look fantastic against what I thought was a pretty motivated Deiveson Figueiredo. A Figgy that a lot of us were saying, man, this guy's past it, he's washed, and he went out there and put up a decent fight. And he had nothing for Song. He had nothing for Song. Couldn't find him, and then, what do you know? Song ends up submitting Deiveson Figueiredo, which Umar was not able to do. If I would have asked you before these guys fought Deiveson Figueiredo, who's more likely to submit Figgy, who would you say? I think we would all probably say Umar, right? There's MMA math for you. So I want to talk about this fight, because while I do think that Umar is going to win this fight, I just have this weird feeling, and I'm hoping that the spidey senses are wrong here. I hope that the senses that are tingling paws are just, some alarms of caution that we can ignore. But I got a lot of respect for the game of Song Yadong, man. This is a guy that is 28 years of age, 12-4-1 in the UFC. I mean, Song has been in the UFC for so long. He's been in the UFC for almost 10 years, which is kind of crazy to me. Right? He's a guy that's grown up before our very eyes. And as I've said before, no matter what fight Song is in, whether he is winning or losing, all of the fights, even when he's losing to some of the best guys, they've been competitive. He was competitive with O'Malley. He was competitive with Petr Yan, two of the best strikers in this weight class. Right? That I think are very tough fights for Umar. Right? So coming into this, Umar's going to have a slight reach advantage here. And I do think that that's something to note because we know that Umar does a very, very good job keeping guys at the edge of his strikes, utilizing the good footwork to kind of dance around. But man, I'm just saying, when you talk about styles, does Song Yadong not have good takedown defense? I think he does. Does he have good scrambling ability? Absolutely. And on the feet, I think his boxing is nasty. He's got crazy power. And I think in this fight, if Song can fight behind an educated jab, start to throw it to the body, start to bring it upstairs, to get into that boxing range to try to find that right hand, I know that Umar, I would say, is the better overall striker here. But when it comes to the power and the explosiveness, particularly with the boxing, I think Song has an advantage there. And we saw some things from Umar in that Mario Bautista fight that I think Song and his team are going to be all over. Whenever, and I've been mentioning this for a while now, whenever Umar goes southpaw, he has a very bad habit of when you are pushing him back towards the fence, of kind of anticipating something coming, and he starts to kind of slip off to the side over and over and over again. And you saw Mario Bautista make him pay for that. Bautista threw a knee, he threw a high kick, and if I'm Song Yadong, I'm taking those notes. Because I can promise you this, if Song Yadong lands that shot, Umar's going to be in some problem. He's going to be in some danger, man. He's going to be dealing with some problems. Because while I think Mario Bautista is a very good grappler, his jiu-jitsu's outstanding, and he does have technical striking, I think we could all probably say that Song Yadong hits harder and is more explosive. And Song's a smart fighter. He's got a great camp. Right, so those are some things that Umar's been doing that concerns me, man. The dipping off. Right, if Song can start to pressure him, and we know how Song gets. We know how he can get down, man. He'll start to move forward, start to get into that boxing range. He's got some powerful kicks as well. He can work the lead leg very well, take away some of the movement of Umar, make it a little bit harder to explode in on some of those shots, rip some kicks to the body, try to soften the midsection, get the hands to come down, and then maybe even set up a high kick. Right, throw those kicks to the body to take some wind out of the Umar Nurmagomedov sail. Because one of the big things that we've seen Umar Nurmagomedov go a hard 25 with Merab, and we know what Merab brings to the table: a crazy gas tank, crazy durability, and Umar was right there with him the whole time, was landing some big shots. Right, did start to slow down a little bit later on in the fight, but that's what happens when you fight Merab. And I think that that's an interesting element here, is that this is obviously a 25-minute fight, and we've seen Song have these lulls with the energy, these dips, to where he looks good, then he starts to slow down, the output comes down, then he starts to kind of battle back, then he slows down again. That's what Song can't afford to do in this fight. So let's talk a little bit more about their styles, man, because I just feel like, I don't know, I have this feeling that this isn't just this runaway fight for Umar Nurmagomedov. Like, I feel like a lot of people are going to think it is. And like I said, I'm never going to be surprised if Umar goes out here and dominates Song and just 50-45s him or ends up getting a finish. Like, I'm not going to be surprised. I just have a lot more respect for the game and the style that Song brings to the table, especially coming into a matchup like this to where he's motivated. Right, imagine if Song can go out here and beat Umar, what this would do for his career. Right, so when you talk about Song Yadong, 23-9-1, 9 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 7 first-round finishes. And we got to take a look at this, man. Song has been in the UFC since 2017. It has been that long that he's been in the UFC, growing up before our very eyes. Right, and if you look at what he's been able to do recently, that's really what I want to focus on. I mean, he had the 5-rounder back in 2023 against Ricky Simone, where he was able to knock him out late, right, going to a decision with Gutierrez. I don't think that that's the greatest look in the world, but to be fair, Gutierrez has good footwork, good leg kicks. He's a durable guy, so okay. Then he goes out there and loses to Petr Yan, but it was competitive. Song was having moments in that fight. We know how good Petr Yan is. Goes out there and he's beating Henry Cejudo, I thought, pretty comfortably, right? And obviously the footwork and the wrestling that Cejudo brings to the table, the eye poke unfortunately happened, and then the fight ends up getting stopped. But goes out there and has a very close fight with Sean O'Malley, one that a lot of people felt like Song won. We saw him mixing the takedowns. We saw him landing some really good low kicks, letting some of those big power shots go, which clearly Sugar Sean very much respected the power of Song, because this was one of the most hesitant O'Malley's that I feel like we've seen. He was very, very weary of the Song Yadong power, right? And we know how fast O'Malley is with the footwork, getting in and out, letting his kicks go, firing off the boxing combinations. And I did think O'Malley won this fight, being accurate, putting some more points on the board, and landing some of those sharp shots down the middle that were stinging Song Yadong up. But most recently, going out there in a 5-rounder against Deiveson Figueiredo, this felt like a layup for Song. But to be fair to Figgy, he showed up for this fight, man. He absolutely showed up for this fight, and then he shoots in, and Song just locks into Gilly and submits Figueiredo. It's like one of the most dangerous 125ers we've seen that's moved up to bantamweight, had quite a bit of success, but against the top guys in this division, we've seen that Deiveson Figueiredo was a step behind. So Song Yadong's been putting in some good work. Despite losing some of these fights, Who's it been against? The elite of the elite in this division, where he's been competitive in those fights, man. And I know Song Yadong's gas tank can sometimes be a little bit suspect, to where it looks good, then it looks like he's slowing down and all these different things. But I feel like in this fight, Umar's going to switch stances. He could do it very well. He can fight very well orthodox, very well southpaw. When he's southpaw, that's where you can blast those kicks to the body. That's where you can start to damage that left arm of Umar Nurmagomedov, take some sting out of it, start to get those hands to come down to open up potentially a high kick, right? And obviously, when you start to let the kicks go, that's going to, increase the risk maybe of Umar being able to snatch one and aid it into a takedown, of course, but the kicks are very damaging, and we know that Song is a heavy hitter. But I feel like for Song, fighting behind the jab and starting to find the right hand and getting into that boxing range is how he's going to win this fight. And by all means necessary, stuffing these takedowns. Imagine if Umar is getting a little uncomfortable by the pressure Song is putting on him on the feet. He's starting to get the boxing going. He's starting to find a little bit of a rhythm with the timing. What happens if Umar shoots these takedowns and Song starts stuffing them, or he gets taken down and pops right back up, and Umar just spent all that energy trying to get a takedown, did get the takedown, but now they're back on their feet. Now Umar's going to be skating around trying to kind of, get his win back, trying to settle back in, and that's where Song can push the pace. That's where Song can get in his face and start to let those combinations go. So things are going to get really, really interesting, man. I'm telling you, if Song can stuff some of these takedowns. Because we've seen if Umar gets a little uncomfortable on the feet, he will start to, like I said, he starts to dip, he starts to anticipate, and then he will look to level change. And I think that those are going to be areas to where Song can look to throw some knees, preferably uppercuts, right? When you ever you have solid boxing like Song, you got power in your hands, those shots up the center line against guys that are going to want to look to grapple, I think are going to be some key details that Song is going to look to implement in this fight. And when Umar's southpaw, those kicks to the body, it's the open stance game, looking to set up a high kick. When Umar's in that orthodox stance, attacking the calf, taking away some of the base of Umar, I think that would be a great investment for Song to make in this fight against Umar in a 5-rounder. And you know what Umar brings to the table. He's a complete fighter. He's very dynamic. He's high level everywhere. I feel like if Song can stuff these takedowns, can scramble, can make the takedowns very costly and energy, a lot of energy being spent by Umar, and start to work the body, get into that boxing range, I think Song can find a lot of success in this matchup because I think he's got heavy hands, he's got explosive power, and if he fights behind the jab, he can start to pick Umar off, start to interrupt his rhythm, interrupt some of that forward pressure as he's looking to close the distance, and working the body to get those hands to come down of Umar and take some wind out of the sail and start to kind of make him a little bit more hesitant when it comes to the grappling. So I feel like a lot of this is going to come down to, can Song get into boxing range, let his hands go, not fatigue in this fight, and be smart with the shot selection. Don't overextend and get yourself out of position to where you're getting taken down and you end up in a bad spot and you're spending a ton of minutes there because you're just going to lose that way against Umar. Right? You got to be very weary on the feet because it's not like, well, you just got to stuff the takedowns and you're all good against Umar. We know how versatile Umar is on the feet. You got to be on high alert. There's kicks coming up out of nowhere. Umar's got great flexibility, dexterity in these kicks, just whips them up out of nowhere, man. So it's going to be paramount for Song to crush the space. Don't sit at that kickboxing range because that is where Umar can be very, very dangerous. And Umar's got some nasty boxing as well. So it's a tough challenge for Song. But with the power he possesses, with the improved takedown defense, with the, just the well-rounded game that we've seen him bring into the table, I think with the right approach, Song can go out here, invest to the body, shots up the center line, attack the base of Umar, and look to set up some of those big power shots. Maybe you could go out here and find some sort of KO or land some big damaging shots to take some of these rounds against a guy in Umar who knows how to win minutes and knows how to put points on the board when it comes to the striking. I think Song Yadong is a very, very tough stylistic matchup for a lot of guys in this weight class. And like I said, I kind of have this feeling that he might be a tough matchup stylistically for Umar Nurmagomedov here. I think Song is very much in this fight. Now let's talk about Umar Nurmagomedov. Because those of you that have been following the channel, prior to coming into the UFC, you hear the last name Nurmagomedov, we all kind of know what to expect. We're expecting a high-level fighter. We're expecting high-level grappling. But the truth of the matter is, I think Umar might be a better striker than he is grappler. And I don't think that that's a crazy take. He fights a lot like his brother Usman. And if you don't know who Usman is, right, over in the PFL, just had that nasty KO over Archie Colgan. Hopefully we get Usman in the UFC. But I asked Submission Radio back when they were interviewing Javier Mendez, who is the most talented MMA striker that Javier has worked with? And he said Usman. And I think Umar might be more talented than Usman, right? So that, and if you've watched Usman, the games, the kicks, like these two to me have very similar styles. They have solid boxing, but it's their kicks that make them special on the feet. And that's what we see from Umar. We see him always have some sort of advantage in some area in pretty much every fight he's ever been in. Whether it's the grappling, he's got an advantage there. He's got an advantage at the kicking range, or he's got an advantage in the boxing range, or an advantage everywhere. And if that happens, you're cooked, and Umar's going to dominate you. And that's why he's 20-1, right? He's 30 years of age, 8-1 in the UFC. He's been in the UFC for quite some time now, almost 2-0 in the PFL, right? And I was hoping that we would see him in the UFC because he was, light work in the PFL for him. 2 wins by knockout, 7 by submission, 5 first-round finishes. And we got to talk about this win, right? Comes into the UFC against a couple, guys where it's like, okay, those are some layups here and there. How about when he knocked out Raoni Barcelos back in January of 2023 in the first round? How well is that win age? We've seen Barcelos, man. He's really turned the page, and it's just been clicking, right? He's almost like 40 years of age, and look at the streak that he's on. Dominating Peyton Talbot, beating Ricky Simone, right? Beating Montel Jackson. Like, we've been picking Barcelos as an underdog time in and time out, and he's been coming through. And he's about to fight Raul Rosas in a main event of the Apex, in an Apex card. Or in the Apex, on an Apex card, man, So that's a good win. Like, who does that to Barcelos, really, right? And that just showcased the power and the striking that he has. And then to go out there against Beksat Almakhan, right? We talk about, well, Beksat stepping in on short notice against Umar. Like, how nuts is that? And he dropped Umar, which is crazy and concerning because Song's got a ton of power. I think he's got more power than Beksat, right? But Beksat's a fast starter, very explosive. But how about how Umar took the risk to fight this guy on short notice? Umar was the one with everything to lose. And outside of getting clipped by that big right hand, yes, it was nasty. Dove for a takedown, was able to get it, and then was able to just dominate Almakhan on the mat and neutralize him the rest of the fight and win minutes and control him and dominate him, right? And that's the ability that Umar has. You could get the better of him on the feet, but typically he's going to have a grappling advantage over pretty much everyone he faces and then goes out there and gets the big opportunity against, I think Corey was ranked number 1 at the time. And I thought Umar would go out there and show levels against Sandhagen, and I thought he would have more dominance in the grappling department, and Sandhagen just showed what a crafty guy he is. He was scrambling so well, right? And we saw how Sandhagen and Song Yadong matched up, right? Corey Sandhagen started to open up the elbows, was able to get, the cut, and so the fight had to stop there. But you get to see how good Sandhagen is, man. And look what Umar was able to do. Was able to have moments on the ground, but was able to outstrike him on the feet, was able to have a lot of success in the striking against a well-rounded Sandhagen back in 2024. Going out there, we already talked about the crazy fight with Merab. Rather dominant win over Mario Bautista. Bautista's been one of like the, more underrated guys in this division. We all realize how good he is now. Was throwing up some toe holds, was giving Umar some fits. This was not an easy fight for Umar, which I didn't anticipate it to be. And while I think Mario is very technical on the feet, I don't think he presents the danger that Song does on the feet. I think Bautista is more dangerous on the ground than a guy like Song, especially in the jiu-jitsu department, right? To be able to create some danger in those scrambles and then going out there and, I believe that this was the first Paramount card, right? 324, going out there and easily beating Davison Figueiredo, but it was a little bit of an underwhelming performance. It was one that I thought Umar would be able to go out there and find a finish. So that's kind of been the pattern here. Again, very steep competition, fighting some of the best guys in the world. You're not really going to be able to finish everybody. But I'm just saying, coming into this fight, do we see Umar push a little bit more for a finish, given where the bantamweight division is? The UFC, right? We got Jan versus Merab going down on the UFC 333 card, which is an amazing trilogy. And if Jan wins, like, are they going to try to do O'Malley versus, Jan in a 5-round fight for the belt? Like, there's all these different things going on here, right? The good thing for Umar is he hasn't fought Jan yet, and he had an amazing first fight with Merab Dvalishvili. So we've seen Umar, since losing to Merab, went back to the drawing board, kind of reset some things, worked on some things, kind of got back on his horse. He's rattled off a couple nice wins here. He's just kind of fighting whoever the UFC gives him. I mean, I think that they were trying to give him David Martinez on that Abu Dhabi fight night that happened a little while ago. That was a horrible matchup, man. That would have been an easy win for Umar Nurmagomedov. That would have been a layup because Martinez has no gas tank. And yeah, he's decent on the feet, but I think Umar's better than him everywhere. So that was a layup. I don't believe Song Yadong is a layup. So how does Umar win this fight? He's got to keep Song guessing. Keep him at kicking range, right? I think that Umar, there's the chance he could also outbox Song because we've seen, while Song does have a lot of power, sometimes he doesn't open up a whole lot. He kind of waits for the perfect moment, waits for that perfect opportunity to try to depend on landing those big power, those big power bombs that can knock you out or hurt you or drop you and put you in some danger. So while Song's looking for the perfect shot and he's looking to move forward, there's going to be those moments to where Umar can frustrate him, throw those front kicks up the middle. We've seen him throw front kicks to the face. We've seen him batter, guys midsections with those front kicks. And we know that Umar's got question mark kicks off of both legs. No matter what stance he's in, he can whip a question mark kick up out of nowhere, off the lead leg as well. And that's what makes Umar so difficult to deal with, man, is he's just good everywhere. He's so skilled in every area to where you think you're striking, you think you're boxing, then it becomes a kickboxing fight. You think that you're just kickboxing, then he introduces some elbows and knees. You think that you're just striking, and now here comes the grappling. And then, we're just grappling. Oh, no, we're striking. And that's what Umar has the ability to do. He has the ability to make you freeze and be a little bit more hesitant because you're worried about the different things that he's throwing at you. He could give you different looks. He could change up where this fight is taking place. And I feel like that's kind of the deciding factor that does lead me in the direction of Umar winning this fight. And I think he does it somewhat convincingly. But I've said that I think Song Yadong can give him some problems. I think Song's going to be able to scramble. I think Song's going to be able to work his way back to his feet. And if Song can get Umar on the back foot and crowd the kicking range, I feel like that's where Song can start to find some success with his hands, and I think he's got a power advantage in the boxing department. I know that Umar does have some sneaky power as well, especially, in his kicks, but in his hands as well. So I think that Umar could potentially outbox Song Yadong by getting the volume going, picking his shots. But I feel like the kicks is where Umar's going to be able to separate himself from Song on the feet. And right when Song feels like he's getting comfortable or feels like this is a striking battle, that's where Umar can level change, get to the hips of Song, put him on his back. And again, when Song's in that orthodox stance, you see Umar go southpaw. That allows that single leg to be right there. We saw Islam hitting that all day long on Ian Machado Gary, right? So whenever you have the open stance game, that single leg is right there. So I would imagine that that's something Umar is going to look to do. So we'll see if Song kind of picks up on that and looks to try to land some stuff, knowing that Umar is probably going to try to grab that single leg. So for me, Umar just needs to mix things up. Make this a mixed martial arts contest. Don't just stand in the phone booth and box with Song Yadong for an extended period of time, because I think Umar could get away with doing that. But utilize the kicks, batter the midsection of Song, get those hands to come down, attack the back arm of Song, right, that right hand, to take some sting out of it, start to damage it, to caution him from throwing the right hand, and maybe even set up some high kicks of his own. We saw Usman just do it to Archie Colgan, a boxing-based guy with good wrestling, who I think stylistically a little bit similar to someone like Song, right? I think Song hits harder and I think Song's better, but I'm just saying, stylistically similar here. Bury those teeps to the midsection. Get those hands to start coming down. Get them reacting and set up a high kick. Set up a question mark. Right? Start to pick at Song on the way in with the boxing. Be careful dipping your head off like that, right? Because if I'm picking up on that pattern, I'm sure Song and his team are. We've also seen Song as one of these guys to where if you could start to get after him, you can start to outpoint him, you can start to discourage him, you mix in some takedowns, you're having success there, you start to wear down that gas tank, right? Start to attack the body, wear down that gas tank. And then when Song starts to fall behind, sometimes you see those moments where he then starts to load up, the shots become a little easier to see. And I feel like Umar can take away some of that Song Yadong confidence if he's able to put him down on the mat, able to control him there, and just keep mixing it up. Whenever Song feels comfortable in an area, change up where the fight is taking place, because that, to me, can make a guy who sometimes can be on the lower output side, can make Song a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more reserved, and if that happens, that's where I feel like Umar can take off and start to separate himself clearly in this fight, is if Song becomes too patient, too worried about getting taken down to where he does not open up enough on the feet. That's where I can see Umar starting to get ahead with his kicks, with his boxing, mixing things up, and then just starting to put points on the board and kind of run away with the fight. So my overall assessment is I do think that Song Yadong could potentially be a very tough fight for Umar here. And I do think that Umar wins this fight, and I'm leaning towards a decision. I mean, I think it'd be a statement if Umar could go out here and finish Song, right? Obviously, main event of a fight night, 25-minute fight. Think of all the great fighters that Song has been in there with, right? Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley. Now, granted, those were 15-minute fights, but they didn't finish Song, right? So if Umar can go out here and get a finish, I feel like that holds a ton of weight to go out there and beat a very durable, a very, very game and prime Song, man. A guy that maybe you could say I'm overshooting Song a little bit. Maybe you're saying that I'm overrating him too much. And I do believe that skill-wise, Umar Nurmagomedov is on a different level. I think that he is one of the best guys in the world. And if Merab's not in this weight class, I think he might be the champion right now. I think him and Petr Yan is an amazing fight. I don't know who I would pick to win that fight, to be honest. Right? Because I think Petr Yan's better on the feet, and I think he could stop some of the takedowns. So maybe I would lean Petr Yan in a matchup like that. And O'Malley's a tricky fight, I think, for Umar, right? Especially if it's on the feet. Sean O'Malley's a nasty striker. So no question that Umar Nurmagomedov is one of the best in this division. He's incredibly well-rounded, incredibly skilled. I just think his overall skill set, he's got more tools in the bag. He can win in more areas of this fight. We've seen his gas tank is good. He's very physically strong. He's fast. He holds body language, he hides body language well, whips these kicks out of nowhere. And I just feel like he's going to be able to sting up Song from range. But imagine if Umar could get a submission. Right, control Song on the deck, gets to a position, can submit him, land some good ground and pound, soften him up maybe, land a high kick on the feet. I mean, what a statement that would be to go out here and get a finish over Umar. And imagine if Song goes out here and gets a win, especially if he, puts on an impressive performance and wins by a decision, or if he was able to finish Umar Nurmagomedov. That'd be one of the craziest wins I feel like we've seen in the UFC. And really, I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy wins, but I feel like this would be a massive upset if Song Yadong was able to go out here and pull this thing off. So I got a lot of respect on the game of Song Yadong. I'm a fan of both of these guys. You guys know I really like Umar, and I recognize what Song brings to the table. I think stylistically, the way he matches up, if he could have an answer for the grappling of Umar, which I think he will have some answers, that's where things can get interesting on the feet because we know Song is very, very explosive. I think the output of Umar, the overall kicking game, the way that he can mix things up, I just feel like he's going to be a step ahead in this fight. So wouldn't be surprised if Umar ends up winning this dominantly. Wouldn't be surprised if Song goes out here and has a lot of success or somehow pulled off an upset. That would be crazy. I'm actually looking forward to this main event. Song's dangerous. He's always game to fight anybody. Same thing for Umar Nurmagomedov. And if Umar can go out here, add Song to the resume, that'd be 3 in a row now. I think he's right there to be back in there fighting for the bantamweight title. I think this is a great matchup, man. And I think stylistically it's very interesting because if Song can have answers for the grappling and it takes place on the feet, I think Umar's a step ahead, especially with the volume and the overall skill there. But Song's got power, and he's getting better. You can see the confidence growing. When you have competitive fights with some of the best strikers in this division, he's had moments, right, with the leg kicks, with the boxing, the uppercuts, the right hand, working with Rudy Hernandez. So I'm not counting out Song in this fight. I feel like a lot of people are going to do that, and I'm not doing that whatsoever. So I think Umar wins, and I think he wins by a decision. I think he wins minutes on the ground. I think he's able to outpoint Song on the feet. I think this could look somewhat similar to the Corey Sandhagen fight. My question is, can Song scramble as well as Corey? That's where things get a little bit dicey. And if Song doesn't have answers for Umar's takedowns, he's going to get controlled on the deck and lose minutes and probably get tagged up on the feet because he's going to be a little bit too hesitant to open up given the fact that he was taken down and controlled. So great fight. I'm looking forward to this. But I just feel like Song Yadong, I've always said this, kind of like the Arnold Allen of the bantamweight division. Very, 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 very skilled and right there with the elites, but almost just something doesn't click to where he's just a step below the top guys in the weight class. I feel like Song is a top 5 to 7 guy, and I feel like Umar is clearly a top 5 guy in this weight class, and we know how Team Khabib gets down the Abdulmanap school, Javier Mendez, Khabib. We know they're going to come in with a good game plan. They're not just going to sit out there and just box with Song for 25 minutes. They're going to kick. They're going to land some shots in the clinch. They're going to look to grapple. I just think Umar needs to be very smart in how he approaches this fight because I think Song is very, very dangerous. I'm looking forward to this one, man.